Will Trump's Supreme Court end your marriage, end your health care, and let your employer fire you for being LGBTQ? Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. In the first hour of the program, I was talking about how another right-winger on the Supreme Court, particularly a hardcore right-winger, on the fascist end of the spectrum, we could see Social Security get wiped out, declared unconstitutional. It almost happened in 1937. We could see Medicare and Medicaid being declared unconstitutional and destroyed. We could go back to the Lochner court and see minimum wage laws struck down and child labor laws struck down. We could see our nation's public schools being gutted, an effort that Betsy DeVos has been cheerleading for some time. We could see any effort to reduce carbon emissions that or quote violate the rights of refiners and drillers, all of that stuff. But probably more or not more or less, but another issue here that as certainly the entire country has gone through a big change on in the last 20 years, I would say, is the issue of gay marriage and LGBTQ rights and just that whole spectrum of stuff. And it looks like all of the women that Donald Trump is considering are people who are relatively hostile to such ideas. On the line with us is Alphonso David. He's the president of the Human Rights Campaign, hrc.org, a great organization, one of my kids used to work for. Alphonso David is also his Twitter handle, or @HRC. Alphonso, welcome back to the program, or President David. Tell me, what do you know about the people that Trump is considering, and what kind of impact, let's say we get somebody on the court who is opposed to gay marriage or to marriage equality, I guess is a better phrase, who is opposed to marriage equality. How does that play out? What happens?
Well, first, Tom, thank you so much for having me. You're right. The Trump administration, and Trump specifically, has gone after LGBTQ people for the past 3.5 to 4 years. And we cannot afford to have a justice on the Supreme Court roll back our rights. Marriage equality, as you referenced, is settled law, but LGBTQ people still face discrimination every single day, even after the Bostock decision, which effectively said, employers, you cannot discriminate against employees in the workplace. LGBTQ people and their families face discrimination when they're seeking housing or education or even entering a store or a restaurant. And in the coming years, what's at stake is whether individuals and organizations have a license to discriminate against LGBTQ people when they seek basic services, whether LGBTQ people and their families can be turned away from businesses that are open to the general public, whether qualified transgender people can be denied and excluded from access to the U.S. military, whether or not same-sex couples will be allowed to adopt or serve as foster parents. I mean, there is a laundry list. And what's one of the most important pieces, of course, is the Affordable Care Act. We know that 1 out of 5 LGBTQ people live in poverty. 1 out of 5 LGBTQ people don't have access to health care. And those that do have access to health care are at risk of losing that health care because the Trump administration has been focused on dismantling the Affordable Care Act. So those are just a few things that are at risk. We cannot afford to let that happen. We have to fight for our democracy. We have to fight to make sure that fairness, justice, and equality actually mean something and is translated through the courts.
Alfonso, I believe that virtually everything on your laundry list, perhaps with the exception of trans people in the military, but pretty much everything on your list is being fought using the rubric of freedom of religion. Do I have that right? And if so, how does this play out?
You're absolutely right. So all of us should be well aware that our Constitution provides protections for individuals who are engaged in religious-related activities, meaning there's a separation between church and state. The federal government cannot pass a law that infringes or in any way sort of affects your ability to exercise or participate in your religion. What some anti-equality forces have been trying to do is effectively say, Yes, we understand we have those protections under the Constitution, but we don't have sufficient protection. So I, as a bakery store owner, should have the right to deny any types of services to an LGBTQ couple because they offend my religion. If I'm running an adoption care agency or even a foster care agency with state dollars, I should have the right to deny an LGBTQ couple or a single woman or a religious minority the ability to serve as a foster parent or an adoptive parent because it actually offends my religion. This issue is turning the Constitution on its head. Yes, you have the right to exercise your religion, but what you don't have is the right to essentially deny basic rights and protections to other people when you engage in services in the public sphere. That's where the distinction is. When you open up your doors and you say, I'm going to provide services to the public, you can't say, I'm going to deny you those services because you're black, or because you're transgender, or because you're bisexual, or because you're disabled. You can't do that. And that's essentially what anti-equality forces are trying to do.
We have on the court right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that we had, prior to the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 3 people who were Jewish and 6 people who were Catholic. And that all of the Catholics were essentially fundamentalist Catholics. And that, first of all, do I have my numbers right here, Alfonso?
I think you're right. With the passage of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we of course lost one. But
right,
yes.
Right. And in Judaism, there's a long history of separating religion from state, in part because Jews have historically been persecuted by pretty much every state that's ever come along, arguably with the exception of Israel. But there's also a long history in Catholicism of the state and the religion being the same thing. I mean, the Catholic Church ran Europe for 1,300 years or longer. So what is the status? I mean, right now, I'm assuming that all 5 Catholics on the court. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because Sonia Sotomayor is one of those Catholics. So, yeah, Sotomayor. So you've got, I believe, the 4 right-wing Catholics are all of the opinion that religion should be something that impinges on governance, whereas the 2 Jews and the 1 progressive Catholic would say no. Do I have that right? And how might an additional right-wing Catholic on the court change all this? Or is this? Or am I just being way out of here in space with even talking about this way?
No, you're not. You're not. I mean, I without framing this with a huge, broad brush, I think it is fair to say, which is what you're suggesting, that we do have to be extremely concerned about individual rights and individual liberties suffering with some who are misinterpreting the full scope of religious liberty. Religious liberty does exist. No one is denying that, but it cannot exist to the detriment of individual rights. And that is what we're focused on. With another Supreme Court justice who believes that individual rights should succumb to religious liberty, we will lose many of the protections we currently have today. And we all have to be concerned about that. Remember that religion has been used in the past to justify colonization. Religion has been used in the past to deny black people the ability to actually participate in their religion. Religion was used in the past to justify, in certain parts of this country, slavery. So we know that religion can be used for bad. We know that people can interpret religion in a way to deny fundamental rights to individuals in this country. And we have to make sure that when we talk about the Constitution, when we talk about the Supreme Court, we have to make sure that individual rights and individual liberties are upheld. We're not in any way going to infringe on anyone's religious rights, but if you engage in the public domain and provide services to the public, you can't say to me as a black man, and I also happen to be gay, that you will deny me services if I'm gay, but you will provide me services if I'm black. We have to make sure that individual liberties are protected. So your point of highlighting, if we have a Supreme Court justice who is a very conservative Supreme Court justice and interprets the law in such a way that if it infringes on our individual liberties, we will lose a lot of the protections we currently have. All of us should be concerned about health care. All of us should be concerned about individual rights. All of us arguably should be concerned about climate change. All of us should be concerned about voting rights. Those things are important to our democracy, and that's what we're fighting for.
Yeah, amen. And fighting the good fight. We're talking with Alphonso David, the president of the Human Rights Campaign. Alfonso, we have about 20 seconds left. What would you recommend we be doing?
We need everyone to vote. We need everyone to contact their elected officials and tell them, do not vote on a nominee. The next president should be responsible for that action.